The motion has been brought particularly, and it notes that 1 woman every 4 days in Australia is murdered by her current or former partner. 1 woman every 4 days, Deputy Speaker. It's horrific. The statistics are absolutely horrific, and these are, of course, the ones that we know about.
And I call the member for Hughes.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I rise to speak on this motion brought by the member for Warringah, and I thank the member for bringing this motion, which concerns gendered violence. And, Deputy Speaker, the motion has been brought particularly in light of some of the more heinous events that we've seen recently throughout our country and in my home state of New South Wales, where women who have taken numerous AVOs out, they have done everything we have asked them to do, and yet still they have been violently murdered at the hands of an ex-partner. The motion has been brought particularly, and it notes that 1 woman every 4 days in Australia is murdered by her current or former partner. 1 woman every 4 days, Deputy Speaker. It's horrific. The statistics are absolutely horrific, and these are, of course, the ones that we know about. Deputy Speaker, I've had the privilege of being in this place now for 2 years, and in just those 2 years we've dealt with many issues of national significance: defence, health, appropriations, how Australians are taxed, the environment, energy, housing, immigration. These are big issues, but I think that domestic violence and how to tackle it is probably the most overwhelming of our national problems. It is a crisis, and when I've spoken to colleagues, both male and female, about this, the most commonly uttered word is overwhelming, and I think that's how I feel. I feel overwhelmed by this as well. But I think if we can't speak in this place about this very important issue, then there is no way that we can ever find solutions for it. And in this place, Deputy Speaker, we have debates, we have disagreements. We've come here from a range of different backgrounds, a range of different experiences. And having heard many of the speakers on this motion, and I thank all of them for having spoken on it, we've heard about lived experience of domestic violence. We've heard about family, about members who have had direct family who have been impacted. Many have been impacted themselves. They may have worked in the community sector. They may, as with the Leader of the Opposition and the member for Cowper, worked as police officers early in their lives, assisting women and children, dealing with the perpetrators, enforcing AVOs. And as I have heard, and I'm sure most of the members in this place have heard, if we have not been directly impacted ourselves, we've heard horrific stories from our electorates, from women desperate for a safe home, desperate for a court to prevent her ex-partner finding her, desperate to ensure the safety of her children, desperate for the violence and the abuse to stop. We also hear from frontline workers on the ground, running organisations, trying to help pick up the pieces, under-resourced, overstretched and overworked. And I have many of these excellent community service organisations within my electorate. I'm lucky, I'm in a metropolitan area, and I know that many of these organisations are simply not available in our regional areas. And when I was first elected Deputy Speaker, I met with the 2 superintendents of the local area commands in my electorates, both Sutherland and Liverpool. And when asked what was the major challenge that you face in your LAC, they both unhesitatingly said domestic violence. And when we say domestic violence, we're covering a lot of things. We're covering physical violence, sexual violence, emotional abuse, financial abuse, technology-enabled abuse, and they all have different manifestations and different impacts on victims. And, Deputy Speaker, we talk a lot about victims.
Order. A division has been called for in the House. The proceedings are suspended to enable honourable members to attend the division. The proceedings will resume when the Chair of the Federation Chamber is resumed at the conclusion of the division or subsequent divisions. The question is that the document be noted, and I call the member for Hughes in continuation.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. And so, Deputy Speaker, we have in this place, and this motion does talk about providing significantly more money for victims, for example, in a whole range of areas. It also talks about providing more money for education. It talks about better resourcing of frontline workers, and all of those measures are supported. And I think what has been particularly important with this motion is the number of male MPs that have spoken on this, because, Deputy Speaker, this is not a woman's issue, this is a community issue. It's a whole of society issue. It's a problem for all of us in this place. We need to work together, men and women, to come up with solutions. And I think it's also very important to remember that these crimes are committed by a small minority of men. Most Australian men do not hit women, they do not abuse women, they find it abhorrent. And we have for years now, since we broke the taboo of silence, the taboo of victims speaking out about domestic violence, sought improvements in many spaces. As I've said before, we've introduced AVOs, we've put significant resources into policing and training police officers in the domestic violence arena. We've done this through the courts, we've done it through welfare agencies and through our education system. But, Deputy Speaker, many of the most recent alleged perpetrators, for example, were under the age of 35. So they have in fact already been through an education system that has embedded respectful relationships within its curriculum from preschool. Many of the victims go and apply for an AVO. An AVO, though, provides no shield to a gun. An AVO provides no shield to a knife. An AVO provides no shield against a perpetrator following his victim online or otherwise without her knowledge. An AVO provides no shield against a perpetrator convinced that a woman is his possession, has no right to leave him and must be punished by violence, even by death, or her children must be punished. So while I do support this motion that speaks about providing more assistance to the victims, I think we now also need to have a conversation and look at measures that have worked, both here and overseas, in prevention, early intervention and rehabilitation. We need to consider that the perpetrators in these cases have mental health issues, because it is not normal for people to be violent. It is not normal for men to hit women. We need to look at diversionary programs that address underlying anger management issues, for example, because that is the only way that we are going to break this cycle. We can continue to provide more and more money for victims, and that is important. But until we stop violent men hitting women, this cycle will continue, and we will continue to see more women dying, and we'll continue to see more women trying to find safe haven in refuges. There have been, the member for Cowper spoke quite compellingly about the success that he had seen in some of his areas, in some of his electorate, when he was a young police officer, in diversionary programs, in male education programs, rehabilitation, and he said to the extent that he actually saw that some of these offenders recognised that their behaviour had been completely unacceptable and had ended up leading classes themselves in diversionary and male re-education programs. I think that we need to take on board comments such as that. We need to take on board the lessons over in California, for example. The criminal justice system had set up a domestic violence diversion program similarly aimed at intervention, rehabilitation and education, and it has similarly seen some success. So, Deputy Speaker, gender violence is multifaceted. It is a very complex issue. As I said, it feels overwhelming in its scope. I feel confident, though, that at least in this place we are all trying to work together to find solutions for this problem. Einstein famously said that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing the same way it's always been done and expecting a different outcome. I think now is the time we need to throw everything at this problem. We need to put everything on the table, and we need to look at how we can change the behaviour of perpetrators as well as providing the adequate support for victims. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.